Hello everybody. We're just waiting for a few people to get on here. This is Northeast Private Information Share, Friday, April 22nd, and we're talking about a traffic stop silver bullet. Some things that I've discovered recently. Well, actually, I have. I'm building a case, and so that's what we're talking about. Can you hear me? Can anybody please chat if you're hearing me fine? I see there's some people there. Can anybody hear me? Test, test, test. Can you hear me fine? I see there's some people on there. Good, good. All right. Okay, so we're talking about this traffic stop silver bullet. This is something that I have, and I don't like to. That's the reason. One of the reasons I haven't done any YouTube videos recently, because there was nothing really new that I could bring up. And but this is something that that is new. That and I've done it myself. And so I know it works. I know it works in Texas. Let me put it that way. And it makes sense that it works elsewhere too. But you're going to have to get to know your codes. See, my problem was that I was trying to get common law juries together, get 12 educated people that knew something about the law, that wanted to hold a hearing on these criminals, these thieves, these pirates, and I tried several times to hold grand juries and common law juries, and nobody showed up. I won't say nobody showed up, that's not correct, but we just didn't get enough to hold it. Okay, there was people that showed up for sure, and so we didn't get enough to hold a common law jury, and so yes, I agree with Seth. I'm tired of being railroaded by the crooks, and so I actually I met with Randy Kelton. Okay, Randy Kelton is a guy has rule of law radio. He's strictly statutory. Okay, and so he swears up and down none of this common law stuff works and all the rest of it, and that's fine. That's his opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. But he's got some great stuff on their statutes where I can take their statutes and break it off in their backside. And so that's what this video is about today, is how we can take their codes and break it off in their backside. And so anyways, we might as well get started. First of all, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm not a lawyer. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything, and I'm open to any ideas. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? And that is taken from the movie The Matrix, and everything is an illusion. If there's anything I've learned, is that everything is an illusion. Government's not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people are the only sure reliance of preservation of our liberty. And Jefferson was probably the best president that we had, although I think that Trump was and is, comparable to Jefferson for sure. Whether he's better or Jefferson's better, I don't know. They're both in the same league for sure. The following are Texas codes. Okay, we're going to talk about Texas codes, but I suspect that the principle is the same in other states. Matter of fact, I know it is in Alberta. Okay, believe it or not, Alberta, believe of all places, in communist Canada. Crime means a misdemeanor punishable by confinement or a felony. Okay, and that's Texas government code. So that's what a crime is: a misdemeanor punishable by jail. Okay, so not all misdemeanors are punishable by jail. Okay, a Class B or Class C misdemeanor, but it is a Class C misdemeanor is punishable by fine only, and we're going to get into that. So a Class B or Class A misdemeanor, they can put you in jail over potentially. So then a Class C misdemeanor is not a crime, and we're going to go through some of my interactions with some of the Gestapo. I've got, matter of fact, I'm waiting on an Attorney General's opinion right now. We'll go into that, okay? And so, anyways, to continue, Texas Penal Code says an offense under this section is a Class C misdemeanor if the offense for which the actor's appearance is required is punishable by fine only, okay? See, a Class C misdemeanor is punishable by fine only. Conviction, Texas Penal Code again, 12.03, conviction of a Class C misdemeanor does not impose any legal disability or disadvantage. And 12.23, an individual judged guilty of a Class C misdemeanor shall be punished by fine only not to exceed $500. Notice it says a judge guilty, okay? So until they've held their show trial, okay, then they can't. They can't charge you, or they can't even call it a conviction or a judge guilty. Okay, they can't fine you. Okay, until they've held their show trial. And this is Texas Transportation Code. They kind of like to spread it around. If the owner of a motor vehicle fails to timely pay the amount of the civil penalty imposed against the owner, okay, so a fine is a civil penalty. Think about it. An arrest warrant may not be issued for the owner, and the imposition of the civil penalty may not be recorded on the owner's driving record. Okay, that's under Texas Transportation Code. And so they kind of spread it around. And this is what you're going to have to do in other states and other countries is, it'll be found in other various obscure places, eh? Matter of fact, Randy Kelton said what you have to do is read the Texas Penal Code from cover to cover at least twice, and you'll start to get an idea on what's going on. And he's probably right. I haven't read it. I've just collected this information from him and from other police people like Catman. Catman's a great source of some great information, and so I highly recommend him. And if you don't mind, he makes good IDs too, and so but he kind of likes to ramble on about things and talk your ear off, and so just keep that in mind. But the laborer is worthy of his hire. Some people, his IDs are expensive, but they're good IDs. So it's up to you. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other, but I like him, and I think that the laborer is worthy of his hire, and he's he's done a lot of research, and he's been through the mill. Okay, he's been in jail. He's been arrested by these pirates, and he breaks it off in their butt, and so he's not afraid. He's walked the walk. Let me put it that way. He doesn't just talk the talk. He's walked the walk. And so, anyways, my new book is available. Trump, a true American patriot or not? Mike Blackwell's on there because he asked me to write the book. He's the publisher, and it actually took me about 2 weeks to write the book because I just basically took a lawsuit and put it together, but then Mike went and babysat me through the whole process of getting it published, and that took about 6 months. So it was published in the summer, in August of 2020, just before the election. We were hoping that maybe we could have some influence on the election, and so, but of course, you know, there's marketing and there's all sorts of stuff, and so we didn't have as much influence as we would have liked. Anyways, what truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. This is the back of the book, and this is put together actually not by Mike. He actually hired a company to do the publishing. He's the publisher, but there was a company that he was working with that you know, helped us with it. So they put this stuff on the back, and I think it nails it. Okay. Anyways, what truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. At the center of this movement is a crucial conviction that a nation exists to serve its citizens. And that's a quote from Donald Trump in his 2016 inaugural address. And he went, and during that address, he went on to say, he said, "For too long, a small group of the nation's capital have reaped the rewards of government at the cost of its citizens. Washington flourished, but the insiders refused to share in its wealth. Politicians prospered, but allowed our jobs to leave and our factories to close. Not anymore." And that's from Trump. Okay, now this is from what the publishers put in there. In Trump, a true American patriot or not, Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell revealed the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. And it goes on. Read the hard evidence that exposed how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the Satanic Roman cult on our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. And that is true. That is, they nailed it there. Anyways, so it's available. You can order the book from Amazon.com or on my website. It's actually $40 plus shipping. I need to change that. Prices are going up. Amazon, if you prefer, you can order the book from my website. It's that price on Amazon, as well as because the publisher has control over what Amazon sells the books for. So it doesn't matter where you buy it, but if you order the book from my website, you'll get an autographed book. And so I would rather that you ordered it from my website, but it's available from Amazon, there's no doubt about it. Amazon does not provide autographed books. If you want the book autographed, order the book from my website, but don't forget to let me know if you have something in particular that you want the autograph to say. Do you want to know the origins of the deep state? And one of the things I want to say is that there's very little of this book that's my opinion. Okay, and remember, it was part of a lawsuit, right? So 95% of it, at least, is provable facts, and I support it with court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff. And so there's very little of it that's my opinion. Okay, there is some things that are my opinion, and we'll kind of go into those in a minute. Do you want to know why it's called the Trump administration? Do you want to know what an administration is? They started doing that around the turn of the century in 1900. I think it was because of Downs versus Bidwell, quite frankly, which was a Supreme Court case that came out in 1901. A bunch of things changed after that case came out. Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? Do you want to know who owns Congress? Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? You know, Downs versus Bidwell is kind of an interesting case because it's involving Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was something that the U.S. acquired from the Spanish-American War, and the war with Spain. Do you want to know how you have become a slave? Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? And they do. And I don't know, one of the things that's my opinion, I don't know how many of you know who Jerome Corsi is. Jerome Corsi is a guy that has written a lot of books. Jerome Corsi is a guy that's written a lot of books, and he's got a PhD in political science. What he does is, well, he's got a YouTube channel, and there's actually, the reason I'm mentioning him is because there's a YouTube video where he, if you want the book, it's on my website, sovereigntyinternational.fyi. All one word, sovereigntyinternational.fyi. I'm kind of looking at the chat a little bit right now. Anyways, so Jerome Corsi, there's a YouTube channel. He's got a YouTube video where he says that in 2015, 5 generals came to see him, and they told him that they were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you know, you can do that if you want, but you might want to go talk to Donald Trump first. And 3 months later, he gets a phone call, and they decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. And I won't say that they said they were going to overthrow Obama. They were saying that there was some people in the Pentagon that were going to do it. So I don't know if they were going to do it or if there's people in the Pentagon. Anyways, the point is that they decided not to do it because Donald Trump agreed to run for president. And it's my opinion, this is my opinion, that the entire Trump administration was a giant military psyop. They have a war college, they study warfare. The best war to win is one where you don't even fire a shot. Okay? Read The Art of War. Okay? Sun Tzu. Okay? The best war is one where you don't even fire a shot. And so we're in the middle of a war right now. Okay? The first shots have actually been fired with this pandemic, this biological warfare agent. Okay? And so we're in a war, okay? And there's people in the Pentagon that are treating it that way. And so, matter of fact, Cliff High even says that the Chinese are broadcasting that they're going to go to war with the U.S. soon. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I hope we don't, quite frankly. I don't know. But, so, the point is that that's one thing that's my opinion. Is I think that the entire Trump administration was a giant military psyop. It's also my opinion that Trump is still president. I think that they had to make that election theft by Biden be so obvious. I hope my channel doesn't get taken down. but I think that he's still, this is my opinion again. And so all I can say is read the book and come to your own conclusions. That's why I say, Trump a true American patriot or not? Read the book, come to your own conclusions. Anyways, in reality, they're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way. So, civil versus a crime versus a civil matter. If it's not a crime, it's a civil matter, right? In Transportation Code, it even calls it that, right? Remember we talked about that a minute ago in the Texas Transportation Code? says if the owner of a motor vehicle fails to timely pay the amount of the civil penalty imposed against the owner. An arrest warrant may not be issued, okay? What they do is they issue a capias, okay, which is a debt instrument. So if it's not a crime, then it's a civil matter, right? Copies of these documents can be found on my website and linked under my recent videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but it is an extremely less desirable alternative. I accept IOUs, Federal Reserve notes, PayPal gifts, military script, checks, money orders, etc. Send me an email for particulars. You know why I put that statement in there? The reason is because there's a Supreme Court case called U.S. versus Karloff from 1875, and the Supreme Court said that everyone and everything not privileged is sovereign. So Federal Reserve notes is a really, really big part of your enslavement, okay? And if they can presume that you want to play in that system, then you're a slave, okay? There's that Clearfield doctrine, right? When the use of Federal Reserve notes are used, then you're no longer sovereign, okay? So I put this in here because I don't want Federal Reserve notes. I can take them, but it's certainly not a privilege. It's a burden. Anyways, so it's again, it's all these little things that you have to be concerned about. A capias is not a warrant of arrest. A capias ad satisfacendum. A judicial writ of execution which issues out of the record of a judgment where there's a recovery in the courts of debt and damages, etc. And by this writ the sheriff is commanded to take the body of the defendant in execution and keep him safely to keep so that he have his body in court at the return of the writ to satisfy the debt, the plaintiff, his debt and damages. Okay? There you go. It's a debt instrument. Okay, that's what it is. And this is Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. A capias means a writ that is issued by a court having jurisdiction of a case after judgment and sentence. Okay? Well, these clerks go ahead and issue them all the time. Okay? Matter of fact, it's not signed by a judge or anything. Okay? And directed to any peace officer in the state of Texas and commanding the officer to arrest a person convicted of an offense and bring the arrested person before that court immediately or on a day or at a term stated in the writ. So, and this is why we're going to go through some criminal complaints. Maybe not today, we'll see. Might later today, or certainly tomorrow and the next day. We'll go through some criminal complaints because that's what I do. Is I file criminal complaints against them, and get it to the point that they don't want to talk to you. Okay. Anyways. A capias pro fine means a writ that is issued by a court having jurisdiction of a case after judgment and sentence for unpaid fines and costs, and directed to any peace officer of the state of Texas and commanding the officer to arrest a person convicted of an offense and bring the arrested person before that court immediately. So, if it's color of law, and I have a right to ignore color of law, okay? And so then it's a felony, and that's one of the felony criminal complaints, okay? It's violating your rights under the color of law. I have a right to ignore their color of law warrant. That's a fake warrant. They call it a warrant. It's not a warrant. It's a capias. Capias is not a warrant. Remember, we talked about that. Check out my other videos, Bankster Thieves Playlist, Roman Cult Playlist, Bankrupt Corporate So-Called Governments, Bar Members 1 through 7, Do-It-Yourself, How Not to Volunteer for the Selective Service and the Draft, Martial Laws Here, Do-It-Yourself No Income Tax, Do-It-Yourself Free Mail, Kangaroo, Do-It-Yourself Kangaroo Courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs Playlist, Bar Members and Their Satanic Connections Playlist. I've got around 500 videos, and if you want to go to my website, there's a page with links to all of my YouTube videos, or almost all of them, linked by, and they're organized by categories. So I know on YouTube that it's going to have you going all over the place. So if you want to find them, go to my page on my website, and there's a free page, free videos page. There's a link on the front page that says free videos, and those are all YouTube videos, and you just click on that and it'll take you to the page, and you'll have access to, you'll be able to click on the links. You can study them by topics, and so that'll kind of get you started. Land titles, martial law. There's a bunch of different categories, and you can you're able to study by topics and have where the videos are at. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, citing cases from the U.S. Supreme Court, the 5th, the 7th, the 8th, and 9th Circuits, held that by definition, probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. So when that cop stops you and he threatens you with arrest for a capias, that's a civil matter, okay? And so you have to understand that, and you got to tell a cop that he doesn't give rise to probable cause for an arrest, okay? Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. He doesn't have authority to make an arrest. And so now we got criminal complaints here, okay? Lots of criminal complaints. I filed hundreds of them, believe me. I've got flat rate boxes sitting on the table full of criminal complaints. I packed those suckers full. And one of them goes to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C. One of them goes to the FBI, and one of them goes to, depends on, there's a couple places I sent them to. They could go to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement if they got pigs named in it, or the other ones. What I do is I go after the lawyers. Okay, the lawyers are the low-hanging fruit. The lawyers are deemed to know the law. They're supposed to know the law, so you can really go after them. I'm telling you, and I do. And I suborning perjury. Well, think about it. If they're sending that cop, they're hiring, screening them for low intelligence, and giving them a gun and telling them to go out and assault people. Well, that's suborning perjury, right? That's exactly what they're doing. Those lawyers know exactly what they're doing, or they're deemed to know exactly what they're doing. And so the lawyers are really the low-hanging fruit. And I'll tell you about some things that happened here when it comes up. My contact information, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. If you go to my website, right on the front page is my book, and you can have links to buy it there. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on the part of Facebook. My private group on Facebook called Sovereignty International is being deleted. Quite frankly, I haven't been to Facebook in months. I have absolutely no interest in going there. I would like to. I don't want them profiting from my hard work, so what I would like to do is go there and ban all the people off those private groups. But there's like 19,000 people on those groups, and because that's the only way that you're going to make sure that they can't profit from your hard work, because otherwise they're collecting information on all those people that are on that group. And so I also have a private group at freelist.org called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants, and a Google private group. Now, Google has taken my private group down a couple times because there's been things talked about it here that they didn't particularly like, and so I am going to be filing criminal complaints against every member of the board of directors and all the executive officers of Google. And again, the lawyers are the low-hanging fruit, okay? And so we'll go through some of those criminal complaints, tomorrow and the next day, and why I do things the way they do. And actually, it's in Texas. Well, we'll go through them when we go through them. Anyways, follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. I've got that library, which is now called it starts with a C. Let me look. Odyssey. There we go. Not C. Odyssey. It's now Odyssey. Let's see here. Let's. Odyssey.com. Might as well just go ahead and change that right now. Did I spell that right? There we go. Anyways, so, and I've got a Patreon, Sovereignty International. And so what they're doing is they're engaging in multiple felonies. Okay, when you understand what's going on, they are, and so the best defense is a good offense, remember? So, matter of fact, I need to find that. Let me find that. Euless. What happened is, after 2 years, Euless went and dismissed a case that I had, that they had brought against me because I was traveling with a Republic of Texas plate on my car. And so I will show you the dismissal now. I'll have to modify this Okay, so now we're looking at this dismissal, and state's motion to dismiss the city of Euless. This was in the interest of justice, okay? And the bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a judge. 15th of February. I got this by email here about well, on the 15th of February, right? And so, but that's like 2 years or 3 years after it started, okay? And the reason is I've been filing these criminal complaints, and I'm not done. I'm telling you, I am not done. And matter of fact, I've got a bunch of criminal complaints here I've recently filed against the cops for Euless, and I use this as evidence because it makes great evidence. And I'm filing into a lawsuit, and I'm going after some judges, and with judicial complaints, and so. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. So that's what happened with Euless. And then there's Colleyville. What happened with Colleyville is I have it's a temporary plate, okay? Because of all the harassment, I wound up and getting the vehicle registered, but I got it registered in Arizona, and they gave me a temporary plate that was good for a year. One of those plastic, it's a paper thing. And so I had a plastic cover over it so it doesn't get ruined by, you know, the road, the dirt and everything. And there'd been a storm in Texas, and so it was a little dirty. So the Colleyville cops stopped me, and after the fact, I realized that they probably wouldn't have stopped me if they would have known who I was. Anyways, so what happened is I had my hands on the steering wheel, and I was saying, I see you got your emergency lights on. Where's the emergency? And they said, this is a traffic stop. We need your driver's license, registration, insurance. And I said, so you're investigating me. I said, well, I don't have to give evidence against myself under the Fifth Amendment. And they said, if you don't give it to us, we're going to arrest you and take you down and put you in jail. And so it went back and forth like that a couple times. And I had someone in my car that witnessed all of this too. So they made an affidavit. And so I'm telling you, I really broke it off in their ass. I'll bet you I got the chief of police fired over that one. But anyways, so what happened was they read in the radio, they said sovereign citizen need backup, and about 4 more cops showed up. So then I pulled out my Republic of Texas diplomatic ID card, and I gave it to him, and I said, I'm a senator with the Republic of Texas, and I'm a protected person under international law. And she looks at that as a lady. She looks at that and she says, Glenn Fern, you're Glenn Fern? they're taking my name in vain. That's good. That's a good thing, okay? So they don't want to talk to me. So anyways, she actually did give me a citation, but the last two citations, I used Randy Kelton's material with Colleyville. The last two that they gave me, and I used Randy Kelton's. Randy Kelton has a really good challenge to jurisdiction and a demand for an examining trial. They're supposed to, before they arrest you, they're supposed to give you an examining trial, and when they stop you on the highway, that's an arrest. Matter of fact, it even says on the police report. I always order a police report. And matter of fact, we're going to go into that here, okay? What happened with her? That's why there's an Attorney General's letter. Anyways, so maybe I'll go into that next. But so what happened was she did give me a citation, and I used Randy Kelton's material, and I never hear another word out of him, okay? And they're not sending me letters. There's threat letters through the mail. They're not. Matter of fact, I filed a bunch of criminal complaints. I filed about 50 criminal complaints against all the cops. I went in there with a pile of paperwork that's like about, a couple feet, and to the clerk, and she filed them all. You give them an original for the court, a copy for the prosecutor, and a copy for yourself. Right, so there's 3 copies of everything, an original and 2 copies, and so and every one of them had a criminal complaint or a nastygram that I sent to the Colleyville Chief of Police, and that was attached. And what happened is I had sent the Colleyville Chief of Police one of my notice and demands, and then they arrested me and did all sorts of stuff. And so then I sent them one of my nastygrams. And in the notice and demand, it says, I accept your oath of office, and if you think you're representing me, you're fired. And then his hired thugs went and assaulted me and all sorts of crap. And so then the nastygram says, normally I say I accept your oath of office, but you and I both know you have no intention of honoring your oath of office, so fuck your oath, you lying fucking motherfucking son of a bitch. No disrespect to dogs intended. And then the next paragraph says, if you or your pigs want a piece of me, you just name a date, time, and location, and I'll come armed, and we'll settle it for it once and for all. You lying, perjuring motherfucking son of a bitch. And so there's like about 20 pages of that, right? and always, when I send one of those out, I send it out, make sure at the very top it shows everybody and their brother is getting a copy of it. Like, for example, the Attorney General, the FBI, and the Texas State Police, and the Donald Trump even got a copy of that one. And so, so it had a copy of that nastygram, and that nastygram had the original notice and demand that I sent them to, right? Matter of fact, what happened, and this is a side issue, I'm not sure if I got that down to talk about that here, but I did the same thing with Bedford, okay, City of Bedford. Sent them a notice and demand, and they, after about 9 months, one of their cops arrests me for having that Republic of Texas plate, and then the notice and demand, it says I'm going to be traveling in your area with this plate, and all of that stuff. Anyways, and so then they arrest me, and then I sent them the nastygram to everybody and their brother, and the mayor, where a friend of mine was talking to the mayor. The mayor told us that the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement raided the Bedford Police Department and fired everybody in there except for 2 people, and so the chief is gone, and so that's the kind of stuff that happens. Okay, I'm serious. When you do this right, you build a case against them. You use their own codes against them. You break it off in their ass is what you do. And so it's one step at a time. That's all I can say. One step at a time. I'm just looking at the comments now to see if there's any comments. Republic of Texas, well, everybody knows that Texas was a republic way back when, okay? And what happened is when the Republic of Texas, when any sovereign nation joins another sovereign nation, they have to do a treaty of annexation. And so this is in response to Trevor Cruiser's question. So what happened was the Republic of Texas actually did do a treaty of annexation, sent it to the U.S. Senate for approval and adoption, and they didn't. They shelved it, okay? And so when they shelve it, then they did a House Joint Resolution. And the House Joint Resolution's not an approval or adoption. And so you're right. State of Texas is a corporation like Walmart. And so what happened is some people figured this out back in the 90s, and they brought the Republic of Texas out of abeyance, which is dormancy, and they formed a provisional government. You look at what the U.S. does when they go into Iraq and these places, and how they do what they call nation building. And so what they do is they form a provisional government. We had a provisional government of the Republic of Texas, and then we held elections, and then we had a regular government. And so the regular government of the Republic of Texas has been operating since the mid-90s. And I'm a senator, and we hold Congress every month. And if anybody wants to know about it, send me an email. And if you're in Texas especially, but we've even done something recently where people who aren't in Texas can be a part of it. You won't be able to vote until you've lived in Texas for 6 months, but you can still be a part of it. And if you want to know about it, send me an email, and I'll put you in contact with the people that you need to be in contact with. So, anyways. Yeah, if you set it up right, they don't want to deal with you, okay? And that's what this cop says. Glenford, you're Glenford. Anyway, so let's keep going here. So there's a Roman maxim of law: let him who is willing to be deceived. They lie, they cheat, they steal as much as they can. They're nothing but a bunch of thieves and pirates. And matter of fact, one of the criminal complaints that I do is for piracy. John 8:44 says, "You're of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." And so they're liars, and if they speak one lie, then that's all they can do is lie. Okay, and so they're liars. They're Satanists. So this is the New World medical dictatorship, New World slave flag for those, although it doesn't really apply too much in Texas anymore. Some places it doesn't apply, and some places it does. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video on YouTube. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And on Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. This is the front page of my channel. This is the subscribe button's already been clicked, but the arrow is pointing at the bell, so the bell needs to be clicked. It would look like it's vibrating when it's been clicked, and that gives you notifications. So I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $49.99 a year for the videos only, and $79.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I'm an attorney. But I can tell you what I would do and where to find the forms. So what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception. My agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people who know bring up the right issues and can fight the battle too. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share Land Deed Training, okay, and estoppel certificates training. So you have On my website, there's the free videos, okay, so these are not on my website as free videos. There's estoppel certificates training, which is basically my notice and demand that I send out. Foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of voter registration, criminal complaint training, and there's actually 2 or 3 on those, and I probably need to do another one because I've changed it quite a bit on what I do. I keep my criminal complaints very short. They're like, the actual criminal complaint might be, usually they're like 2 or 3 pages, but they can be up to like 8 or 9. But then there's attachments. Attachments can be quite a bit, but the actual complaint is short. I keep it short. Lawsuit training, I've got 1 video on that, and then there's other training requests. If it's something that's practical, I'm willing to do it. But a lot of stuff I've already done. So Northeast Private Information Share videos are also up there. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content is going to be available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And after this video is done, I'll be making it unlisted, okay, because it's for my Patreons. Right now it's public, but afterwards it'll be available to my Patreons. It'll be unlisted on YouTube. And my Patreon is Sovereignty International. So then another success that I did, okay, was the MD Anderson Center in Houston, Texas. What happened there was a friend, his wife was a nurse there, had been for like 20 years. And so this is, MD Anderson Center is owned by the University of Texas, okay? It's a big cancer center. They do cancer treatments. And so they do a lot of surgeries and stuff there. Anyways, it's owned by the University of Texas, and the CEO of the MD Anderson Cancer Center, can't remember what his name was, had sent out an email saying that because of the Supreme Court case, that you're going to have to, everybody's got to take the jab, and if you don't, then you're going to be terminated. And so I went and sent criminal complaints, and I'll show you copies of them sanitized, Word files, and that I used. That'll probably be on tomorrow or Sunday. Anyways, what happened was I filed criminal complaints against they had, like, on the Board of Regents for the University of Texas, they had a chief counsel, and then they had like about 3 members on the Board of Regents were lawyers, and lawyers are low-hanging fruit. They're the ones that are supposed to know the law. Those are the ones you go after. I'm telling you. I am telling you. Those are the ones you go after. Anyways, and I still haven't done with them. I'm going to file bar grievances against them. I just filed criminal complaints. So what happened was, this lady was all nervous, and she was rather timid. And matter of fact, when this friend of mine told me about it, he told me not to do anything. And I said, well, you know, as a concerned citizen, I have a right to do something. But he had sent me an email that this CEO, Prister, his name is Prister. He was actually from Canada. He's on a green card. Anyways, this Dr. Prister. Anyways, he had sent out this email. He'd sent me the email. But since I wasn't authorized to use it, then I didn't feel like I could attach it to the criminal complaint. So I didn't attach any evidence. I just filed the criminal complaints. And so what happened is, about 2 weeks after the criminal complaints went out, I sent one to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C., like I always do. I sent one to the FBI, and I sent one to the Texas State Police. And about 2 weeks after I sent it out, they came out with an email, and they gave her an exemption, okay? A whole bunch of people had applied for exemptions, and none of them got it. She had not even applied for an exemption, and they gave her an exemption. But it gets better. And then they told everybody else that had applied to reapply. And then what happened is they after that they just granted. They didn't even have to apply. They just granted all the people that applied for an exemption. And then all of a sudden they didn't even care about the jab. Anybody taking a jab. And I'll show you the thing that I sent them, because I go into they in their email they provided a link to the court decision, to the Supreme Court case, and so we'll go through that and how I went and broke it off in their backside, and I went after these lawyers, and these lawyers I accused them of subjecting her to a satanic religious ceremony, number one. Number two, war crimes, okay, because that's violation of the Nuremberg Code. Okay, there's like 4 criminal complaints I filed violating her rights under the color of law, and conspiracy to violate her rights under the color of law, and I filed I think it was 4 criminal complaints. We'll go through them here tomorrow or the next day, and man, it all just went away immediately. All of it went away within 2 weeks. This friend of mine, what he actually got her to respond with a letter with it had, so we don't know for sure if it was mine or what he did. I mean, what he did was really to the point too, because what he said is he said who is going to accept liability for the medical decision about this vaccination? And he just asked 3 questions, and who one of them was, who is going to accept liability for the medical decision about these vaccinations? And it was like 3 questions, real short, sweet questions like that. And and his questions were really good, because that's one of the things I pointed out in my criminal complaints, that a mandate is anybody that issues a mandate's accepting liability. And so anyway, so I'm going to be filing a or a bar grievances against those lawyers, and that always gets their attention, let me tell you. But anyways, I haven't gotten anybody disbarred yet that I know about, but I guarantee you they all go silent. They all go silent. Never hear from them again. Anyways, so we'll go through those criminal complaints, and we'll talk about them here tomorrow or the next day. You have to understand it's warfare, okay? That's exactly what it is. They're making war on you, okay? It's warfare. The best defense is a good offense. You got to go on the attack. You attack them. Build a case. You get a police report. Anytime you're involved in an interaction with the pigs, get a police report, okay? And they give you all sorts of great evidence, okay? Use your evidence to file criminal complaints. File bar grievances and judicial complaints. So I start with the criminal complaints. I file criminal complaints, and we'll go through some of them, or a bunch of them here that we'll do here. But I file criminal complaints against, I get a police report, and then now I got the name of the cop, I got the name of the supervisor. I already know the chief because he's on the website. I got the name of all of the cops that were with him, and and so now I got a whole bunch of people I can file criminal complaints against. In Texas, there's Randy Kelton was telling me, I go out to lunch with Randy Kelton once in a while. He's a pretty sharp guy when it comes to their codes, and he was telling me that he said that he had an interaction with the county sheriff in Wise County, I think it was. I'm not positive, but I think it was Wise County. Anyways, and he said that the county sheriff himself, okay, not a deputy sheriff, he had an interaction with the deputy sheriff, and the county sheriff drove 20 miles to come and talk to him and make sure he wasn't going to file a complaint with the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, okay? So I'm telling you, that's got some teeth. And so again, in Texas, you got to build a case and complain, and things will happen. So file bar grievances. After you file the criminal complaints, then you use the criminal complaints as evidence for the bar grievances and the judicial complaints. And you can technically in Texas, what you're supposed to be able to do, and I haven't done this yet, but I want to, is take the criminal complaints to any judge, and the judge is supposed to issue a warrant right now. Okay, that's exactly what they're supposed to do. Now, what happens is they don't. Okay, and like usually what they'll do, Randy's done it several times, and the judge will say, "Are you a lawyer?" And Randy will say, "Well, I keep my hands in my own pocket, and I think that was, he said, keep my hands in my own pocket, and I sleep well at night. That's it." and the judge said, "Well, you need to take these to a lawyer." And so that's called hindering prosecution. So then he files criminal complaints against the judge for hindering prosecution. And but the bottom line is that if he doesn't argue or get into a fight with them, he'll just go out and he'll dial 911 because he wants it on the record, and he'll say I'm down here and I got this, I need the county sheriff here to arrest this judge. Well, and what he'll do is he'll first of all he'll say to the bailiff, he said, I want to talk to you outside. And they'll go outside and he'll tell them, I want you to arrest that judge right now. Did you witness that? Yes, I did. Well, I want you to arrest him right now. And the bailiffs are cowards. And so then he'll call 911 to the county sheriff. He's got a little procedure he follows. I haven't done any of that yet. That's going to be on my to-do list, on my, what do they call it? My bucket list. Anyways, but once you get the criminal complaints, then you use them as evidence to file bar grievances and judicial complaints. So, meanwhile, give them the finger, okay? It's not over till you say it's over, okay? That's what I do, is I go on the attack. I dump so many criminal complaints, I send them out by the hundreds. I got 3 boxes sitting on the table right now. 2 of them are full. They're going to go to the Provost Marshal General in Washington, D.C. and the FBI. And then one of them is for the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. I need more to fill that one up. I'm too cheap to send them out not full. And so I'll just keep it until I have some more. And I'll send it to the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. And so if you don't, that's what you gotta do, is use their system, okay? This is using their system. If you can get enough people to convene a common law jury, then that's great. And that's the way you should do it, because then you'll get much better remedy, and then you gotta bring it into their courts. But meanwhile, the criminal complaints, they will take care of it for you. So, anyways, so now let's go to some of the criminal complaints. Let's see what anybody is saying. First of all, any of the comments. Yeah, I wouldn't try to educate a road pirate. That's exactly what they are, because it's one of the criminal complaints I do is piracy. And so I think that TM is right, or no, Wasabi Ninja is right, is don't try to educate them. The best thing to do, I don't even talk to them. I just build a case against them and file criminal complaints against them. Let their boss talk to them, let the FBI come down and talk to them, and that's I don't even talk to them. That's a waste of time, in my opinion. And well, they're felonies, right? I would go back. You can go back as long as you can, as long as you can build a case. Absolutely. Doesn't matter. They're felonies. I accuse them of multiple felonies. We're going to go through some of those criminal complaints here in a minute. Doesn't matter how far back. They're felonies. You go after them for felonies. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay, that one we've already seen. So we'll look at some of these criminal complaints. Oh, right, okay. We're going to look at that Colleyville Open Records request. Right here. There we go. Okay, this is from the Colleyville Liars. So they sent a request to the Attorney General, and we'll go through what happened. Matter of fact, I told them I'd sue their butt off. So this is the Attorney General. They're writing a request opinion on the above reference. True and correct copy of the request is enclosed. So let's go Exhibit A, Exhibit B. Let's go down there to the Exhibit A is right here, which is the open records request. And then what happened is they sent me an email saying that basically in order to provide, they're requesting more information. So then this is what I sent them back. I want the body cam from your military police officer that stopped me outside Colleyville city limits, showing her threatening me in the free exercise of my rights to fail to give evidence against myself under instructions from your chief of police, Michael C. Miller, and other military police supervisors on the radio. I want to see her giving her, me giving her a Republic of Texas diplomatic identification card as evidence of her intent to assault, unlawfully arrest, and threaten me, a protected person under international law. I want evidence of the war crimes you and your military police are engaged in. I want evidence of you using force to deprive me of my Christian religious beliefs and by subjecting me to your satanic religious ceremony extortion racket for fake money that is in reality satanic money. I want to know who was on the radio with your police officer conspiring with her to threaten me in the free exercise of my right not to give evidence against myself, and I want to know the names of the supervisors of the officer that stopped me under color of law enforcing the transportation code without authority because she couldn't read my license plate outside the Colleyville city limits. I want a copy of the signed citation that shows that without prejudice that I put there for a signature. And there's 4 military police vehicles there. I want the names and oaths of office of all the officers that were conspiring with your military police officer to threaten me, intimidate me, coerce me, and injure me in the free exercise of my rights. And this is also giving me great evidence against your bar member scum for bar grievances. And so that was my answer. So then we'll go up a little bit further. So she's attached to all of this. Exhibit D is what they sent me, the letter, the email, right? And so then I am the public records manager. Our department is conducting a criminal investigation in connection with this incident. Our department asserts that public release of any information held in our department in relation to this incident would interfere with our department's ongoing investigation and is requesting that it be withheld. That's evidence. That's item C. And then so then this is the email trail, Exhibit A, and this is where I say to them, actually all the charges in this matter are Class C misdemeanors, and Class C misdemeanors fail to be a crime. Therefore, if you fail to provide the requested information, I'll sue each and every one of you in your private capacity. And so that was my answer. So they're saying that because I'm threatening to, then this is the public information there, that this right here. Oh, they went and redacted some of it. I don't know why they did that, but anyways. So this is the request for the Attorney General's opinion. City believes that the information is accepted from public disclosure pursuant to these government codes. We have attached a relevant response information here in Exhibit B. If the city's position is, it is the city's position the response information attached is exempt from disclosure according to the relevant portions of law. City asserts that the marked response information is accepted from public disclosure pursuant to litigation. And I threatened to sue their butt off, and so we'll see what happens. Because it's not a Class C misdemeanor is not a crime. And so they can't be investigating a crime because it's a Class C misdemeanor. Anyways. So that's that one. So, anyways, now we'll go to one of the criminal complaints. We'll start one of those. War crimes. This is a lawyer. Oh no, this is Joe Tooley. Oh yeah, he's a lawyer. War crimes. Let me find it. See, this is, I file these all into a lawsuit that I have going on right now. Joe Tooley is a bar member and deemed to know the law. Now in Texas, and this is one thing you're going to have to do in your own state, okay, is find out if there's any statutory requirements for a criminal complaint. In Texas, a criminal complaint, according to their statutes, has to start within the name and by authority of the state of Texas, and it has to end with, let me get to the end here, against the peace and dignity of the state. So, that's one thing that Randy Kelton, his material showed me. So I always start off as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, which is the supreme law of the land, and is one of the posterity found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare. Joe Tooley is a bar member and deemed to know the law. And then the court citation, officers of the court have no immunity when violating a constitutional right, for they're deemed to know the law. Now these Word files, I'll be happy to email them to anybody that wants them. Maybe I'll put links. I'll upload them to Google Docs and put links to them underneath this video on YouTube. But I'll still be happy to email them. Joe Tooley knows that properly applying the facts to the law is not discretionary, and that's a Texas court case that talks about it. And misapplying the facts to the law in a matter is an abuse of discretion and official oppression. I have reason to believe and do believe that Joe Tooley is engaging in war crimes in violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 2444. And so what I do is the important stuff is to underline, okay, and whoever, whether inside or outside the United States, commits a war crime, and then if you go down into prohibited conduct, a grave breach of Article 3 means any conduct constituting a grave breach of Common Article 3 of the International Conventions done at Geneva on August 12, 1949. Okay, those are the Geneva Conventions. There's 4 Geneva Conventions that were done then. One of them is the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war of 1949. And torture, the act of a person who commits or conspires to commit an act specifically intended to inflict severe physical or mental pain or suffering upon another person within his custody or physical control for the purpose of obtaining information or a confession, punishment, intimidation, coercion, cruel and inhuman treatment, the act of a person who commits or conspires to commit or attempts to commit an act intended to inflict severe or serious physical or mental pain or suffering, including serious physical abuse upon another within his custody or control, performing biological experiments. The act of a person who subjects or conspires to or attempts to subject one or more persons within his custody or physical control to biological experiments without a legitimate medical or dental purpose, and in so doing endangers the health, the body or health of such person or persons. Taking hostages, okay, so that's what they're doing if you think about it. The act of a person who, having knowingly seized or detained one or more persons, threatens to kill, injure, or continue to detain such person or persons with intent compelling any nation, person, or other than hostage or group of persons to act or refrain from acting. Okay, so what they're doing is they're taking you as hostage for that Sesticate trust. Okay, and so the term, anyways, I go through the definitions and I underline the stuff that's relevant in support of their criminal street gang. And then, and this is Texas Penal Code section 7101. A combination means three or more persons who collaborate in carrying out criminal activities. Participants may not know each other's identity. Membership or combination may change from time to time. Participants may stand as wholesale or retail or other arm's length relationship. Conspires to commit means a person agrees to engage in the conduct, right? And then an agreement constituting conspiring to commit may be inferred from the acts of the parties. Okay, so that's like really wide open there, ain't it? And so that's why I got that underlined. Joe Tooley is required to know that Texas is under a military occupation, has been since 1862 when the Union Army invaded Galveston, Texas. And this is Article 1 of the Libre Code. It talks about the military occupation. And Article 42 of the Geneva Convention, Hague Convention, Convention 4, territories considered occupied when it's actually placed under the authority of the hostile army. Joe Tooley is required to know that the only way martial law ends is by specific mention in a treaty of peace or by special proclamation by the Commander-in-Chief. And that's Article 2 of the Libre Code. Martial law does not cease except by special proclamation ordered by the Commander-in-Chief or by special mention in a treaty of peace. Joe Tooley is required to know that there's been no treaty of peace and there's been no special proclamation by the Commander-in-Chief. Therefore, the military occupation continues to this day. And Joe Tooley is required to know that his police are military police with military rank structures and military uniforms. Article 10 of the Libre Code. Martial law affects chiefly the police in the collection of public revenue and taxes, whether imposed by the expelled government or by the invader. Refers mainly to the support and efficiency of the Army and the safety of its operations. Why do you think they always want you to be safe? Which is why they're called law enforcement officers, because they're enforcing the martial law. And Joe Tooley is required to know that his military police get paid in Federal Reserve notes, which are forced loans and military scrip. And the Supreme Court case, Juilliard versus Greenman, the forced loans of 1862 and 1863 in the form of legal tender notes. What do you think a Federal Reserve note is? It's a legal tender note. Were vital forces in the struggle for national supremacy. And Article 37 says this rule does not interfere with the right of the victorious invader to tax the people or their property, to levy forced loans. Joe Tooley is required to know that he is here as a U.S. citizen, a foreigner, with his U.S. citizen military troops to enforce the martial law. And this is Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. Commission rule. U.S. citizenship is required to be licensed as a peace officer in Texas. Joe Tooley is required to know that all Texas codes are edicts under martial law. And this is taken from that non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge H. Ellett in the case Diet versus Turner. It should also be noted that the several state legislatures, county boards of commissioners, and city councils are constantly legislating to please the edicts of the federal government, the occupying force, and that their legislation in this sense is not an exercise of state sovereignty, but instead a compliance with the edicts of the military force which occupies the several states, and consequently are edicts under martial law rule. And Article 13 of the Libre Code talks about the two kinds of military jurisdiction. Joe Tooley is required to know that he and his U.S. military police officers are engaged in war crimes against the demandant by taking reprisals against the demandant for his political beliefs. And Article 3 of the Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilians in a time of war. No protected person may be punished for an offense he or she has not committed. Collective penalties and likewise all measures of intimidation or terrorism are prohibited. Pillage is prohibited. Reprisals against protected persons and their property are prohibited. And then Article 27 says, without prejudice to the provisions relating to their state of health, age, sex, all protected persons shall be treated with the same consideration by the party to the conflict in whose powers they are, without any adverse distinction based in particular on race, religion, or political opinion. And with their torture of the demandant in extremely cold rooms with no clothing or blankets, force-feeding poisons, fluoridated water, medical experiments to coerce information from him. And Article 31 of the Geneva Convention says no physical or moral coercion shall be exercised against protected person, in particular to obtain information from them or from third parties. The high contracting parties specifically agree that each of them is prohibited from taking any measure of such a character as to cause the physical suffering or extermination of protected persons in their hands. This prohibition applies not only to murder, torture, corporal punishment, mutilation, and medical or scientific experiments not necessitated by the medical treatment of a protected person, but also to any other measures of brutality, whether applied by civilian or military agents. And while the foreign United States has failed to accede to the Rome Statute with the International Criminal Court, it's useful to describe war crimes. Now, it's true the United States hasn't acceded to the Rome Statute, but Canada has. And so you can use, in the Canadian Criminal Code, you can use this stuff against, in Canada especially. But anyways, under Article 7 of the Rome Statute for the International Criminal Court, says, for the purposes of this statute, crime against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systemic attack directed against any civilian population with knowledge of the attack: enslavement, imprisonment, or other severe deprivation of physical liberty in violation of fundamental rules of international law, torture, persecution of any identifiable group or collectively on political, racial, national, ethnic, cultural, or religious, gender, or other grounds that are universally as recognized as impermissible under international law. So, I mean, I'm with the Republic of Texas. I tell them that, okay? So that's definitely an identifiable group, and it's a political group, it's a national group, and we're all Christians. And which Joe Tooley and his military police are engaged in when they stopped a demandant for having the Republic of Texas plate on an automobile and imprisoned him. And he, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights except those which the law and his humanity affords him. He is, for the time being, a slave of the state. So that's enslavement is what it is. And they deny due process by failing to provide an examining trial as required by their own edicts under martial law. And that's Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. Failure of the judge to make an order or enter an order within 48 hours after the examining trial has been completed operates as a finding of no probable cause, and the accused shall be discharged. With their forced plea, when they know that the demandant produced a Republic of Texas diplomatic identification card, and they're all required to know the military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code, therefore they had no probable cause to make the arrest in the first place. And Tooley is required to know that no so-called warrant issued by any other city municipal courts is actually a capias, that the so-called warrant issued by other city municipal courts is actually a capias, and a capias is not a warrant. And then imprison him for fake warrants issued under their by other criminal corporations, because a capias is a debt instrument, and so a capias is not a warrant of arrest, and we already went through that about the debt instrument. And Tooley's required to know that all of the so-called warrants were for Class C misdemeanors, which are punishable by fine only. And an offense under this act that's the stuff that we read already about the Class C misdemeanors. And Tooley is required to know that an arrest warrant may not be issued for a civil penalty, and we covered that already too. And Tooley is required to know that a crime is defined as an offense punishable by confinement, and and which means a Class C misdemeanor is a civil matter. And Tooley is required to know that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, citing cases from the U.S. Supreme Court, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Circuits, held that by definition, probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. After their military police officers, under instruction for their military chief of police, Mike Brown, and their bar member handlers, Stacy White, Wayne K. Olson, Lacey Britton, stopped the demand for transportation code offenses like having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, expired registration, or speeding, and their military police are not authorized to enforce the Texas Transportation Code, as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer, true copies of which of some warrant threat letters and email are attached here too, all of which are incorporated herein by reference in their entirety, and they dragged the demandant into their torture chamber jail, where they engaged in torture with their forced fingerprinting, their forced feeding poisons, medical experiments, forced identification, aggravated kidnappings, aggravated assaults, and their threats and their denials of due process, all of which is for revenue, Federal Reserve notes, forced loans, military script for their criminal corporations, City of Colleyville, City of North Richland Hills, City of Grapevine, City of Lake Worth, City of Bedford, City of Euless, City of Hazel, City of Fort Worth, and Deer Park Cash Cow LLC, masquerading as State of Texas, and others. And Joe Tooley has demonstrated that he intends to be their accomplice with his vexatious litigant status and his forced use of Federal Reserve notes, military script, forced loans, and Tooley's defamation and slander of the demandant with his name-calling sovereign citizen that these military police so love to use in an attempt to deny the demandant a remedy in these crimes, and all of which is against the peace and dignity of the state. Anyways, this is the Word file. I've actually got a PDF. I'm not sure which one I have. Let me thin this out a little bit. I've got a PDF. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's the dismissal. Okay, I'll have to open up that PDF for Joe Tooley, and I'll show you the evidence that I attach. And that was for war crimes. So what I do is I scan everything up and make it into a PDF. Oh, I haven't done his yet. Okay. Let me find one I've done for war crimes. Again, you know, what they do is they give you all sorts of evidence. You use their evidence against them. Oh, here's one that I did. This is for one of the cops. This one's actually filed. Oh, there we go. Okay, this one's actually filed. I filed it into the case, and so we read all of the stuff. I mean, we went through it. It's all basically the same. I just make a few changes to it. It's all I do. There's notarized. So here's their cover fact sheet. says refusing to answer any questions only has a Republic of Texas diplomatic official identification card and refused to give date of birth. So this is great evidence. They give you great evidence. Let me tell you, this is the order of probable cause. This is when they put me in jail. A probable cause determination and commitment order that the bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a judge did. This is one of their letters, threat letters that they sent out. It says here. Says if you do not dispose of your citations, you must appear. If you fail to appear, warrants for your arrest will be issued. Okay, when a warrant is issued, additional fee. So that's threatening. That's the dismissal, and this is more stuff from the police report. Okay, and see this here shows that they're wanting money, right? USPD. And they're wanting money, $282 for this, and the registration they're wanting $132. Okay, that's in Federal Reserve notes. Okay, and this is their narrative. They tell the story, and notice how I went and I called the county sheriff. I don't think they mention about that. Oh, the NFI started reading off a laminated paper accusing Graham of official oppression. Well, I certainly did, and he was engaged in official oppression. And so, anyways, I told them I was going to sue their butt off too. Anyway, so they got it all down there. They don't have a part about calling the county sheriff though. So anyways, and then this is the letter from the Tarrant County Sheriff, okay? Now you have to understand how the Transportation Code works. With any law, if you think about it, any law, if it says that you can make it black or you can't make it black, then you can make it any other color you want. Well, what they do is they set up in Section 701 of the Transportation Code, they have these traffic safety officers. And so these either the Texas State Police or 5 traffic safety officers are authorized to enforce the Transportation Code in Texas, in every county. Okay, and this program is a lot of hassle. That's why they never do it, because they have to go and get training from the Texas State Police or the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. I'm not sure which one, but they have to go get training for these officers. They're supposed to be on motorcycles only. They're only supposed to operate on the highway, it's all supposed to be fine. It's supposed to be on county payroll. Okay, so even if ULIS wanted to have a traffic safety officer, they'd have to take one of them and send them down and get them trained, and he'd have to be on county payroll when he's doing it, and all of that stuff, right? And so there's all sorts of, so that's why they never do it, because it's too much hassle. So I sent an email, please provide the names and titles of everyone who's appointed county traffic officer under Texas Transportation Code 701 for the last year. Thanks in advance for your help with this. And Tarrant County office does not have county traffic officers as described in Section 701. And so that means they don't have there's nobody authorized to enforce the Transportation Code. And so that's great evidence. So I attach that and use it to break it off in their ass. Let's see what else I got here. I think that was the last one. That was the last thing. So they give you great evidence. You just got to build a case and go after them. And that's what you got to do. So that's one of the criminal complaints. That's war crimes. So we'll go through another one. So that's what I do, is I file criminal complaints against them and make it so they don't want to talk to me. Okay, this is one that I really like. This is so you'll see how I basically take their evidence and use it against them. And so this is one that I really like. This is one that you can nail them for every time. Okay, they're Satanists. They're subjecting you to a satanic religious ceremony, and so that's very severe penalties for that one. So this one is the word file again. It says obstructing by force the free exercise of Christian religious beliefs, and this you can do this in any state. You can do this in Canada because it's all tied to the Geneva Conventions and the war crimes. I'll bet you but I use the U.S. statutes in this one. By subjecting to a satanic religious ceremony, by denying common laws found in the Holy Bible with lies and fraud in a foreign unconstitutional jurisdiction under private international law with their Roman cult handlers. And so, in the name and by authority of the state of Texas, as a direct descendant of the founders of the Constitution of the United States of America, the supreme law of the land, and as one of the posterity found in the preamble by right of blood, I hereby declare. And this is where what I do is this Wayne K. Olson is the city attorney for the city of Euless, okay? And Ashley Durker is one of the partners in that law firm, and they're all profiting from this piracy is what they're doing, okay? You think about it. They're all profiting from that, from the revenue, from the Federal Reserve notes they're collecting, okay? And so I go after, this is against one of the partners in the law firm because they're participating in it. They're enabling it, is what it's called. They're enabling it. Ashley Durker is a partner in the law firm Taylor Olson Adkins Sarala Elam LLP, of which Wayne K. Olson is also a founding partner that represents the city of Euless, and a bar member and deemed to know the law. Officers of the court have no immunity when violating the constitutional right, for they're deemed to know the law. Ashley Durker knows that properly applying the facts of the law is not discretionary, Walker versus Packer, and misapplying the facts to the law in the matter is an abuse of discretion and official oppression. I have reason to believe and do believe that Ashley Durker is obstructing by force the free exercise of Christian religious beliefs by subjecting the defendant to a satanic religious ceremony by denying common laws found in the Holy Bible with lies and fraud in a foreign unconstitutional jurisdiction under private international law with their Roman cult handlers in violation of 18 U.S.C. section 247. Now, you know, I went and sent this to someone and they couldn't use it because they couldn't see how it works. Okay, so again, if you look at it, it says damage to religious property, obstruction of persons in free exercise of religious beliefs, and then you look at the underlying part. It's really confusing. These lawyers lay awake at night, so I just look at the underlying part. Okay, so intentionally obstructs by force or threat of force any person in enjoyment of that person's free exercise of religious beliefs or attempts to do so. Or if such acts include, if death results, okay, if death results, or if such acts include kidnapping or an attempt to kidnap, that's what they're doing, a fine in accordance with this title and imprisonment for any term of years or for life, or both, or may be sentenced to death. Okay, so I mean, this is very serious. This is very serious. They can get the death penalty. Or any other case, a fine in accordance with this title or imprisonment for not more than 1 year or both. Okay, so they're kidnapping. Okay, when they go and assault you for their fake warrant, that's kidnapping. That's an unlawful arrest. That's kidnapping. In support of their criminal street gang, okay, combination means 3 or more persons who collaborate in carrying out criminal activities. Participants may not know each other's identity. Membership may change from time to time. Conspires to commit means an agreement constituting conspiring to commit may be inferred from the acts of the parties. Okay, so that is a criminal street gang. And is responsible for subjecting the demandant to their satanic religious ceremony because civil law, Roman civil law, and municipal law are convertible phrases, and that's exactly what's going on. they're calling it civil law, okay, but that's still Roman law. They're calling it municipal law, still Roman law. And whereas the maxim of Roman law, let he who is willing to be deceived be deceived, which is very similar to the maxim of equity. Equity will not assist a volunteer, and they lie and cheat and steal and engage in fraud and deception when they criminally convert your name into Glenn Whittingham Fern in all block capital letters in my case, which is a Roman cult Sestike trust under the code of law. And this is Tomlin's Law Dictionary. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. When they were driven out of all their former holds, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses, thus distinguishing between the possession and the use, receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy, to be bound in conscience to account to assist to use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes. The foundation of modern conveyance, hold it now, and as to these inventions that our petitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. Okay, so that's the Roman cult Sestike trust. That's what they're talking about there. And that's found in Tomlin's Law Dictionary, Volume 2, under the definition of mort main. Which is all under the Code of Law for the District of Columbia. It's found in D.C. Code too, in 1901. That was shortly after that Downs versus Bidwell case. Remember we talked about that? That Downs versus Bidwell case that made all these changes. They came out with a D.C. Code shortly after that. Well, the D.C. Code became United States Code. And so this is Chapter 854, which was approved March 3rd, 1901 by the 56th Congress, Session 231 Stat 1189. And it says the legal estate to be the Sestike use at 31 Stat 1432, and they presume you're dead, absence of years under Chapter 3, 31 Stat 1230, and they lie and cheat and steal and engage in fraud and deception until when they forge your signature onto a quasi-contract, a sumsit, okay? A contract becoming afterwards a remedy where there's neither tort nor contract, right? So they assault you with their quasi-contract. Talking about a sumsit. Where does it say quasi-contract in there? It says in the next site, it says, both in Roman and English law there are certain obligations which are not in truth contractual, but which law treats as if they were. They are contractual in law, but not in fact, being the subject matter of fictitious extension of the sphere of contract to cover obligations which do not in reality fall within it. Damn, well, what do you call that? On sumsit, in its origin, an action of tort, a sumsit was soon transferred into an action of contract, becoming afterward a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first only upon an express promise, it was after supported on implied promise or even upon a fictitious promise introduced as a special manifestation of the action of the case. It soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action which superseded debt, became concurrent with account and case upon bailment, a warranty, bills of exchange. These are all talking commercial terms. Competed with equity in the case and essentially equitable quasi-contracts growing out of the principle of unjust enrichment. So they assault you with their quasi-contract, which is solely based on the Roman cult Sestike trust. Constructive quasi-contracts are based solely upon the legal fiction or fiction of law. So they assault you with their Roman cult Sestike trust, so then they can assault you with their quasi-contract. That's exactly what's going on. Where they assault you with some of their so-called benefits. It's a well-settled rule of law that he who seeks benefits of contract must also assume the burdens. Voluntary acceptance of benefit or transaction is equivalent to consenting to all obligations arising from it. And a quasi-contractual action presupposes acceptance and retention of a benefit by one party with full appreciation of the facts, under circumstances making it inequitable for him to retain the benefit without payment of its reasonable value. See, they're a bunch of pirates, okay? That's exactly what they are. Under their equity. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants are first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract, a dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. And they lie and cheat and steal and engage in fraud and deception with their fake color of law warrant called capias, which is a debt instrument, which means it's a civil matter, masquerading as criminal, more fraud, and Graham is required to know that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, citing cases from the U.S. Supreme Court, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th Circuits, held that by definition probable cause to arrest can only exist in relation to criminal conduct. Civil disputes cannot give rise to probable cause. That requires them to have jurisdiction, and that's from Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. And they lie and cheat and engage in fraud and deception when the so-called judge is actually a bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a judge. When acting to enforce a statute and its subsequent amendments to the present date, the judge in municipal court is acting as an administrative officer and not in a judicial capacity. Courts administrating and enforcing statutes do not act judicially, but merely ministerially, but merely act as an extension as an agent for the involved agency. Judges who become involved in enforcement of mere statutes, civil or criminal in nature, act as mere clerks of the involved agency, right? So it's always a statute. It is the accepted rule not only in state courts but of the federal courts as well. When a judge is enforcing administrative law, they're described as mere extensions to the administrative agency for superior reviewing purposes, a bought and paid for clerk. And the bought and paid for clerks masquerading as judges are not competent to do anything judicial like issue warrants or orders. Ministerial officers are incompetent to receive grants of judicial power from the legislature. Their acts in attempting to exercise such powers are necessarily nullities. And they routinely deny due process by failing to provide an examining trial. And this is Article 1617 out of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure. And the bought and paid for clerk, Whalen for Grapevine, Murphy for Bedford, Britton for Euless, McCoy for Tarrant County, Del Carmen for Colleyville, Hudman for Azle, and by the way, I'd like to add that Del Carmen for Colleyville is not there anymore. I think I got her butt removed. Duong for Colleyville, Rogers for Fort Worth, Lane for Fort Worth, Bass for Fort North Richland Hills forges the demanded signature onto a bond under 17 CFR 240.15C2-12 and are demanding fake money, military script, Federal Reserve notes, forced loans in the form of revenue for their criminal corporations, City of Grapevine, City of Bedford, City of Euless, City of County of Tarrant, City of Colleyville, City of Azle, City of Fort Worth, City of Lake Worth, City of Richland, North Richland Hills, and their police courts under their military dictatorship, and Graham is demanding military script, Federal Reserve notes in the form of revenue for the City of Euless and their police court, knowing that they're demanding military script, Federal Reserve notes on their warrant letters, making threats of arrest in which they're demanding $282 for failure to maintain financial responsibility, $220 for registration, no plate, and on each letter it says you may simply pay by credit card, which means it's fake money, Federal Reserve notes, military script, forced loans. And Graham is required to know that the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land, and that's under Article 6, Clause 2. And they're all required to know that Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the Constitution says that only gold or silver coin can be used as a payment of a debt. And the bought and paid for a clerk masquerading as a judge cannot ask for gold or silver coin because it's not in general circulation and has not been since 1964. And the bought and paid for a clerk masquerading as a judge has bonded the case by forging the demand and signature onto a quasi-contract under Title 17 CFR 240.15C2-12 and associated regulations for revenue with Federal Reserve notes, which are intended for use in the District of Columbia only under the Gold Reserve Act of 1934. And so Section 15 of the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 is used in this act. The term United States means government of the United States. The term continental United States means the states of the United States and the District of Columbia and territory of Alaska. The term currency of the United States means currency which is legal tender in the United States and includes United States notes, Treasury notes of 1890, gold certificates, silver certificates, Federal Reserve notes, circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banking associations. Okay, so that means that Federal Reserve notes are meant for District of Columbia only. And they can only, and so they can hold a show trial and sell the demandant into the slavery under their so-called 13th Amendment by forcing the demandant to work for their criminal corporation for nothing, which is slavery, with their fines to collect Federal Reserve notes, military script, fake money. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty, but all his personal rights, except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. Which means they're perjuring their oath of office and support and defend the supreme law of the land by bringing District of Columbia codes not exceeding 10 miles square on the land of Texas in violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And to exercise exclusive jurisdiction in all cases whatever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square as may, so then that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. And they're all required to know that Congress ratified the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights as Treaty 95-20. Therefore, it's the supreme law of the land under Article 6, Clause 2. And they're all required to know the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in Article 1 says all people have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status. Therefore, the demandant is the one who decides who he is, not some hired thug hired by the international criminal corporations like City of Euless, not some bought and paid for clerk masquerading as a Judge Britton, not their bar member ringleader Stacy White, Wayne K. Olson, and all of them have ceased to represent the government. But their first order of business is always to get rid of their pesky little common law problem by orchestrating some sort of emergency, martial law. This is ex parte Milligan. There's three kinds of martial law. Full martial law is a martial law, declaration of martial law is issued. Troops are put on the streets, used only during wartime, used on a foreign country when actually invaded by a foreign power to put down an armed rebellion. Martial law proper is the law of the armed forces. When a captain tells a private what to do, it's enforced by court-martial. And martial law rule is the law of necessity and emergency, allows the domestic use of martial law powers used during times of peace can continue for centuries during a military occupation. So they can impose their military dictatorship, and that's taken from the declaration, that's the cause of necessities for taking up arms. Statutes have been passed extending courts of admiralty and vice-admiralty far beyond their ancient limits for depriving us of the accustomed and estimable privilege of trial by jury in cases affecting both life and property, to supersede the course of common law, instead thereof to publish and order the use and exercise of the law martial. We saw the misery to which such despotism, dictatorship, that's what despotism is, a dictatorship, would reduce us. And that's the cause and necessities for taking up arms, 1775. People nowadays are so stupid they can't figure that out. We can't even begin to count the number of times lawyers, statesmen have said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by statutes. They'd be more truthful if they said there isn't any common law anymore, it's been replaced by martial law. And that's the non-ratification of the 14th Amendment by Judge A.H. Ellett of the Utah Supreme Court in the case Diet versus Turner. Because at common law they would all get their necks stretched at the end of a common law rope. Under Deuteronomy 24:7, if a man be found stealing into his brethren or children of Israel, maketh merchandise of him or selleth him, then that thief shall die, thou shalt put evil away from among you. And they're all required to know that no officer is authorized to enforce the Transportation Code, and our military police officers under instruction from their military chief of police, Mike Brown, and their bar member handlers, Stacy White, Wayne K. Olson, stop the demand for Transportation Code offenses like having a Republic of Texas plate on an automobile, expired registration, or speeding, and their military police are not authorized to enforce the Transportation Code as evidenced by the email from the Tarrant County Sheriff's Public Information Officer. True copies of some warrant threat letters and email are attached here too, all of which are incorporated here by reference in their entirety, and they drag the demandant into their torture chamber jail, where they engage in torture with their forced fingerprinting, forced feeding poisons, medical experiments, forced identification, aggravated kidnappings, aggravated assaults, and the threats and denial of due process, all of which is for revenue for their criminal corporations: the city of Colleyville, city of North Richmond Hill, city of Grapevine, city of Lake Worth, city of Bedford, city of Euless, city of Azle, city of Fort Worth, Deer Park, Cash Cow, Masquerading, a state of Texas, and others. And then it ends, "You of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." And that's John 8:44. "But the fearful and unbelieving and abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and all idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death." Revelations 21:12. Against the peace and dignity of the state. So that one I think is, I've worked on that for a long time, and that one I really like. It's obstructing by force the free exercise of Christian religious beliefs. They're Satanists. They're selling you into jail. They're demanding fake money, which is Satan's money. There's just a whole bunch of reasons why it's nothing but a satanic religious ceremony. Yeah, I mean, I don't even go in there, quite frankly. I don't even go in there. I just start filing stuff in it. I don't talk to them. I got nothing to say to them. I have nothing but contempt. That's one thing I told them one time in a federal court. I have nothing but contempt for you and your so-called court. And, you know, I've never had a judge be so nice to me when I did that. Yeah. Anyways, I think it's getting close to time to break for lunch. Maybe we'll break for lunch and we'll come back this afternoon about, it's 11:30 Eastern time right now. And so we'll come back around 1 o'clock and we'll continue. Does anybody have any questions? I'm looking in the chat for any questions. If anybody has any questions, let's go over any questions that you might have for now, and see if anybody has anything. That's why I filed. I don't even talk to them. They're pirates. I'll show you my criminal complaint for piracy. We'll go through a bunch of criminal complaints here. It works the same in every state. You're gonna have to find comparable statutes. You're gonna have to research their codes. If you can find 12 people that you can convene for a common law jury, that's better. But if you can't, you can still use their codes against them, and that's what I'm doing. And Randy Kelton doesn't like some of the arguments I make, like the martial law and all of that stuff. But I mean, I think I got them down pretty good. It's hard to argue against them, that's for sure. CPS is hard. What you need to do is they all have bar members that are running the show, is file bar grievances, file criminal complaints against them, okay? If they stole your children, they stole your property, is what they did. It's theft of property, and if you look at the theft statutes, the property is how much is your son or daughter worth? I wouldn't call it a child. Do not call them children. I made a mistake there just a minute ago. And they're your property. They're your son and your daughter. And if they want to know what your property is, hold up a picture and show it to them. This is my property. Anyways, but it's all about the money. They're nothing but a bunch of pirates. And there's a local CPS. There's also a state CPS official. Start filing criminal complaints against them and bar grievances. But that's all you can do really. Before, if you're worried that they're gonna attack you, that's the notice and demand. The estoppel certificates that it's my notice and demand. You send them a notice and demand, and that'll nip it in the bud. And if they do anything, then you can really go after them. But chances are, if you send them that notice and demand, they're gonna say, leave this guy alone. And so you gotta be proactive. The only thing is money is gold or silver coin. That's it. I don't care if you have a silver certificate. That's not money. Okay, that is a promise to pay. Okay, that's still not money. As a gold certificate is still not money. Money is gold or silver coin. That's all that's money. That's the only thing that's money. With traffic infractions, I do exactly what I talked about here. I also do Randy Kelton's, and we can talk about that this afternoon if you want, for traffic infractions. I file a Randy Kelton's challenge to jurisdiction and demand for an examining trial. If they may or may not read it, but it builds a case against them. It's really good. It's Randy Kelton's got them. They're really good. You can actually go to Randy Kelton's website. It's called trafficticket.website, and put in your information, and it will populate the forms and give you the forms. But we can go through the challenge to jurisdiction, and it's about 20 pages, and then the demand for an examining trial is about 10. So they're not that long. We can go through those this afternoon if you like. Maybe we'll do that. We'll go through those this afternoon, and we can talk about that. But those are going to be unique to Texas. Now there's a lot of stuff in there that you can use in other states, but you need to find, like for an examining trial, I mean, you need to find something comparable in another state that talks about an examining trial. You see what I'm saying? I mean, what they're technically supposed to do is when they stop you, they're supposed to take you for a magistrate right now and prove that they have jurisdiction, and they never do. They never do, and they just put you in jail. And so that's a denial of due process. And under their codes, they lose probable cause. They don't have probable cause, and so that's a problem for them. And in Texas, that's in Texas. If you're in another state, then you're going to have to find something similar, some other requirement in their codes in another state. And I don't know other state codes at all. The only thing I know about Texas codes is stuff I've collected over the years. I haven't. Randy Kelton said you got to read the penal code from cover to cover. I haven't done that, and I don't really want to do it, quite frankly. But so I just use his material, and I use stuff that I've collected from Catman and these other guys, and so we can go through the demand, the challenge to jurisdiction. It's pretty good, but it's using Texas codes, and so you're going to have to find, and I'll make those documents available. If somebody wants them, I'll put links to them below the video. or certainly I'll email them if anybody wants them. You can contact me at engineerwin@yahoo.com. But in a lot of states they are very similar. You just have to find them and be able to quote them right. Again, these people are just nothing but a bunch of hired thugs, and that's why I put in the stuff there in Texas, the requirements against the peace and dignity of the state. I put that stuff in there. I didn't used to, and I'm not sure that I used to file criminal complaints, and it didn't seem like much happened. And but they used to be quite lengthy too, and now I make them a lot shorter. You saw the both of the ones that I just read were like maybe 6 or 7 pages. We'll go through some like violating someone's rights under the color of law, like 2 or 3 pages. They're quite short, and you just attach your evidence. And I have reason to believe and do believe, and so. It's you just have to. That's in Texas. That's a Texas requirement. I don't know about other requirements, but actually, I was looking at the clock. I was looking at the clock on my computer, and it said 11:30. My computer is still on Texas time, but I'm in New Jersey, so it's actually 12:30. So we'll come back at 2 o'clock Eastern time. So that'll be in an hour and a half. It'll be 2 o'clock Eastern time. Anybody have anything else before we log off for the morning? Otherwise, we'll see you all this afternoon, and we'll if you want to let me know if you want something in particular, like if you want to go through those, we can go through those demand for an examining trial and the challenge to jurisdiction. It's 20 pages. It's actually not that long. It's not as long as a lot of my file, and the thing I like about Randy Kelton is it cuts to the chase. They don't, quite frankly, anything more than about 10 pages. They may not read. And so you want to try and keep it as short as possible, and that's why I keep my criminal complaint short. And the evidence, once the criminal complaint is done, then I attach evidence, and that a lot of times puts it. Sometimes I'll have 100 pages of evidence, but at least the actual criminal complaint is short, and then they can look through the evidence. But so I try and keep it as short as possible, so they don't fall asleep reading it. Anyways, all right. We'll see you guys this afternoon. We'll start about 2:15. It's almost 1:45 right now, so about 2:15. We'll see you then.